Yo, what up? So we're about to make this happen. This is just going to be my picks for the UFC 299 main card, but I am going to start with one fight on the prelims that I'm absolutely taking interest in. Other than that, the rest of them, I'm just going to be kind of up in the air, not really chalant about it. If there's any prospects that tend to stand out that I think are going to be on the rankings in the future, then you know what? I'm definitely going to be there to say my highlights. I want to watch the prelims. I want to watch the early prelims the next morning just to see if I can find anything that's going to really stand out, or I can make some predictions on who's going to break into where in the future of the UFC. Now, I'm definitely going to start off with Maycee Barber versus Katlyn Chookagian. Now, this, I would actually have to say, normally I'd say Katlyn Chookagian would be the winner of this fight. Normally I would. And I would definitely be rooting for Maycee Barber, even if I believed Katlyn Chookagian is going to be the winner of this fight. But I think Maycee Barber is probably going to be very primed to take this one, maybe by decision, maybe by finish. But the only thing that I'm going to say is that Maycee Barber has definitely been on a tear. She finished and had a dogfight with Amanda Ribas, where if you look at where Katlyn Chookagian went with Amanda Ribas, it was a decision win. So obviously it just has shown that Maycee Barber has really proven that she's gone on that destructive path through the roster after that humbling experience at UFC 249 against Roxanne Modafferi. I've been very vocal about Maycee Barber and her progress through the UFC rankings and her evolution as a fighter and as a person. Obviously, a lot of people were criticizing her because when she was very young, and she had that dream of being the youngest champion, which obviously didn't happen. I don't think she was mature enough to be there. She had a lot of cockiness, but anybody who was at that age would have definitely been there to get a big head in the level that she was at. And you know what? She did have a big head, but the wins were piling up. I totally get why she got a big head, and then she got humbled really bad. After that humbling, she's really evolved, and she's become more of a role model, I guess you could say. Whereas Katlyn Chookagian has not really fought in the year 2023. Her last fight was in 2022, and now she's fighting again. And not just inactivity, but she's been very vocal about her fertility issues. I think she's been trying to conceive a child for the last couple of times, and it just hasn't really been working in her favor. Now, Katlyn Chookagian, I'm not trying to put down personally. I do really hope that she's doing all right. As a person, as a fighter, I feel really sorry that she is having these, complications. So part of me does want to kind of see her get a victory and come back stronger or have something to. But mentally, I got to know if she shows up. But if all of the things that I'm guessing are adding up, I really do think that we're probably going to see a Maycee Barber decision win or even a Maycee Barber finish, just because Maycee's been actively training. She's been getting the win. She's been racking up, and she's got so much momentum versus someone who's been inactive and is a lot to come back from. So, there's a big physical and mental barrier that Katlyn's going to need to bust through to get the win. But unless she does that, I'm going to have to go with Maycee Barber on this one. Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Now, this one, I definitely would like to see Petr Yan win, and that's actually who I'm going to pick. But I think in the first round, that's where Petr is most susceptible to taking damage from Song, because Song's probably going to go in there guns blazing while Peter's still in that feel-out phase. And you could probably catch Petr Yan pretty early. Right now, Petr Yan is in a make-or-break scenario just because you got to look. He's had some very close fights, and he did get absolutely steamrolled by Merab. That might be a crushing defeat, but there's a difference between fighting Merab Dvalishvili and fighting Song Yadong. So I want to see Yan get that bounce back and just get some momentum going, but I don't want to look anywhere ahead of one fight. I want to see how his performance goes. I want to see if he even gets the win to begin with. I am picking him as the winner, but I'm also not counting out Song. If it goes past the first round and Song is not able to put Petr Yan away, I definitely think going to decision, it's going to be Petr Yan, definitely. But other than that, I'm going to have to go with Petr Yan. I don't want to count Song out, but Song has fallen short against people that Petr Yan has absolutely steamrolled. I want to know how Petr Yan comes back from his time off, how his morale is still going to be there. Now, he's definitely come back from more frustrating areas in his amateur days, but we are in the pros. But I do think that Yan can come back and really get things rolling again. He just needs... he just needed time, I guess, to take it off, because obviously Sean O'Malley lost, very questionable. Then he comes back against Merab. Merab shuts his game down, and hopefully Yan, I really hope that Jan is going to be a faster starter and he doesn't just shell up and take hits, because that's what's going to leave him super susceptible to taking damage, because your block can only go so far until it starts to give way. And the older these fighters get, I just, see there being complications. They're only as good as their last fight, but I'm rooting for Peter in this one. All right, so Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Mena, and Jack has been on another tear at 170. And normally I would pick Jack Della Mena, but I think that he's trying to do this fast track into the top of the rankings. We'll have to see. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I am going to have to go with Gilbert Burns on this one. Now, why Gilbert Burns? Just because when you watch that last Belal Muhammad fight that he was in, you could obviously tell he was trying to do a quick turnaround. There's not really a quick turnaround right here. I think that as long as he had some time off to recuperate, to readjust, and it's not like Belal Muhammad was like finishing him or anything. He was hanging in there. You could just tell he wasn't moving right in that last fight. So I still think that he's that perfect like top 3 or 4 gatekeeper at welterweight. Do I think he's going to shoot for the title? Maybe one day. We'll see where this goes. Maybe if he makes a turnaround and defeats Jack, he could challenge Leon Edwards, because I think Leon's going to definitely want to pick guys from that generation. And Gilbert Burns definitely is from that generation where he is going to start to see some times where he's starting to get out there. We'll see that in the future where the wheels are going to start to really come off for him. Now, is it going to happen right away? It depends. Every fight could technically be that turnaround point where they start to get old and things just start to spiral a little bit for him. But just based on the science behind his Belal Muhammad fight, how he was overtrained, he didn't seem like he had a good resting period with that quick turnaround. He's had time to recoup, time to get back to it, time to just rest a little bit and be himself. I think he's going to stop the hype train of Jack Della Mena, and we'll see how Jack handles this. But Jack could still win. It depends on how hungry Jack is. But if he somehow gets into the rankings, welcome. But right now I feel like Gilbert Burns is going to shut him down. Michael Venom Page versus Kevin Holland is definitely another fight that a lot of these are toss-ups. Now, this is the thing. I don't really, with predictions, anything could happen in a fight. It could all go out the window. So you don't know. Now, I find this very hard to choose. On one hand, Kevin Holland has kind of checked out from the fight game, and you could tell that he's definitely not shooting for the titles. He's definitely going to be fighting some non-ranked guys who want to break into the rankings. And that's kind of where he's at right now, because every time he's fought a super gained opponent in the UFC, he's really tended to fall short at both 185 and 170. Brunson stopped him at 185. Then he fought Jack Della Mena and lost. And now he's kind of just in limbo where he needs to know where he's going to go with this. So I don't know where his mental game is going to be at. MVP is at 36 right now in his age group. Now, is that too old for the UFC? I don't know. Now, if MVP, I really think he can beat Kevin Holland, but even if he gets through Kevin Holland, whoever his next fight in the UFC is going to be, I feel like once he starts fighting those upper echelons at 170, we're going to start to see MVP kind of get a little, we're going to start to see what Michael Chandler was going through. Now, Michael Chandler came into the UFC a lot younger than MVP is, and you know how these guys from Bellator do. Now, Bellator material has kind of been proven at this point where obviously the 7, the 6, the 5 of the UFC, they could win against. Chandler had a very nice debut against Dan Hooker, who was that perfect gatekeeper spot. Ben Askren, that was a very questionable debut, but he did get the choke at the end. He did take a bit of a pounding from Robbie Lawler, but Ben Askren's just kind of a special case. Now, MVP, not as young as Michael Chandler, not as old as Ben Askren. So it all just depends on his age, and it depends on how his skills translate to the UFC, because I don't care what you say. I feel like the UFC does have the baddest fighters as of right now, and that's probably what we're seeing right here. So Kevin Holland still has attributes that I'm not necessarily going to sleep on. I think right now I am going to go with Michael Venom Page, just because one of the things that I'm noticing is Michael Page is going to want to welcome himself into the UFC with open arms. He's not going to want to take those things. And when it comes to fighting guys who have pretty predictable styles, which sometimes Kevin Holland really falls short technically on some aspects, even with the non-ranked guys, you could tell he was in some compromising positions. I would have to say that Michael Venom Page is going to win either by decision or maybe even a finish. I'd have to say decision, if I'm being honest. Michael Venom Page beats Kevin Holland. I really think he's going to want to make that debut. But even if my prediction right now tonight is correct about Michael Venom Page, if he goes forward and moves up against the upper echelons, those guys like Colby Covington, who still has some tread on the tires, whether you want to know or not, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, they're going to be giving MVP a very big run for his money, and he might not be lasting very long in there. It might be a Michael Chandler situation where once he starts going up against guys who are really up there in the UFC, he's going to fall short, and then he's going to come back against guys who are kind of on their way out, like Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. You know, even though a lot of people did see Chandler beating Tony Ferguson, they didn't know that he's going to face that much adversity in the first round. So I'm going to go with Michael Venom Page and move on to the co-main event. Dustin the Diamond Poirier has just got knocked out by Justin Gaethje. Was it a fluke win? I don't think so. I think Justin Gaethje has definitely just improved leaps and bounds to the point where he's more technically sound. You could tell that Dustin Poirier was getting a little frustrated when it comes to Gaethje because Gaethje was really tightening up his defense. He wasn't he wasn't swinging as wildly. He was going a lot slower, and then when he found that opening, he capitalized on it. Now, Dustin Poirier, I think a lot of people are just looking at his last fight and wondering if it's going to take any damage. I think that if it goes the distance, Dustin's definitely going to win. But if Benoit Saint Denis somehow gets a finish, that's how it's going to go in his favor. Benoit's hungry. It's another thing. A younger, hungry guy versus an old vet. And I think Dustin's getting older for UFC fighter age. He's not old for life. He's just, old for a fighter's age. And we're going to start to see these guys get older, and the wheels are going to start to come off even more for them. Do I think Dustin Poirier has a chance of winning this fight? I honestly believe so, but I am going to have to go with Benoit Saint Denis just because Benoit is hungry. He's going to want to go against that top opponent, and seeing what he's been doing to people, just finishing every opponent and then going against Dustin Poirier, I don't think he's going to finish Dustin. I think he can. And maybe if it goes to decision, I think Dustin might be able to outdog him and outlast him. But it seems like Dustin Poirier's chin is just kind of going away just a little bit. And it's not the same like it was. Like you're starting to see the damage start to accumulate a little bit. And he has lost to Khabib, Oliveira, and now Gaethje. Those are his three biggest losses. And he did beat Michael Chandler, which was his last guy. But it was Michael Chandler, and even Michael Chandler gave him a ton of problems. To be honest, I felt like if Chandler wasn't doing this McGregor fight, which I don't think is ever going to happen, I felt like Benoit Saint Denis would want to fight someone like Michael Chandler, and I think Benoit would absolutely destroy Chandler, to be honest. I'm just going to be real. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as a Chandler fan. Dustin Poirier, there's a shadow of doubt in this one, but either person wins, but I do have to go with Benoit in this one. Just a guy who wants to jump in the rankings and has kind of proven himself multiple times. I'm going to go with Benoit Saint Denis in this one. Now, the main event of the evening is going to be very telling. I think it's going to be Sean O'Malley who's going to take this one. Now, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he has, like I said, improved his leg strength, and he hasn't been getting leg kicked as much to the point where it's effective. You could tell in the Sterling fight, he was working on his takedown defense. And Marlon Vera really does have trouble when it comes to getting going and throwing a lot of strikes. Even in his Dominic Cruz fight, you could tell Dominic was outpointing him. And on a lot of the judges' scorecards, whether you believe in San Diego bias or not, I really think that Dominic Cruz was going to win that decision had Vera not gotten that knockout in round 4. It just kind of seems like, of course, he's been able to hang with the top dudes, but against the top people, he wouldn't really be doing very well. Now, Vera, he got out-wrestled by Corey Sandhagen, who's a striker, so obviously his grappling's not as strong as Aljamain Sterling's. So I really don't think that he's really on that level. I think that this is solely a marketing thing. Now, if Vera wins, it's going to be a shock the world moment. I don't see him winning right now. He can. Anything could happen in these fights. It could go any which way. But it's beyond a reasonable doubt on why everyone's picking Sean O'Malley. Whether you love Sean or hate him, he is a buzz generator with all these things. I have him knocking Vera out this time. He's going to watch for those leg kicks, and he's going to definitely want to, capitalize and make a statement and right that only wrong on the blemish of his career. Now, moving forward, is he going to do that good against Merab Dvalishvili? Maybe. I don't really know. We'll see. But I'm going to have to go with Sean O'Malley. Vera's got a puncher's chance, but only a puncher's chance because I just think the fighter that O'Malley's become and the obstacles he's overcome where everyone was doubting him, I'm going with Sean just for this moment because, after he knocked out Sterling, I was completely sold on the Sugar Show. But those are my predictions right now. I want to see how these hold up in future videos, and then I'm going to review on what went wrong, where things are going. And if I get 100% accuracy, there is a video that I have wanted to release but I only want to release it if I'm right on a lot of my picks, just because I don't want it to come off as cope if any of my predictions are wrong. Now, if anyone is going to make bets based off of my predictions, I highly doubt it at this point. But I'm not an odds maker. I'm not a bettor. I'm not someone you should be taking financial advice from. These are just my picks for this main card based on what I've seen from the past and moving forward in the future in the UFC. But let's go. UFC 299. Let's do this. Peace.